Just after New Year's celebration in Seattle, my January to March 2022 trip to Thailand involved numerous and confusing COVID-19 related requirements and documents. Go to my blog I posted at the end of the video to learn more of my COVID-era travels. My United flight from San Francisco to Singapore was the first they had done since the COVID shutdown. The Singapore flight, as well as the airport, had few travelers. Several wore these Ghostbuster outfits, as did the flight cabin crew. My January 2022 trip would be my first return to Thailand since I had to leave back in March 2020 when COVID locked down the world. When we arrived at the Bangkok airport, we sat in seats waiting to be escorted through the immigration and health clearances and on to our hotel contacts. These contacts escorted us to our private and sealed up taxis to our designated hotels. I went to the Ambassador Hotel where I was escorted to my room by another Ghostbuster clad staff. They had covered the elevator buttons with plastic and covered the floors and walls of the hallways with plastic as well. This was my only view of Bangkok for 8 days. Food was delivered to the chairs outside our rooms. It was pretty good food considering it was not hot by the time I got it. I stayed in the room for 8 days except when I took my 2 PCR tests during that time. Once out of quarantine, I took this canal ride along the Krong Sang Sap Canal. There are over 1,600 canals in Bangkok used for flood control, sewage disposal, transportation, and markets. This canal is 45 miles long through the heart of Bangkok, with 18 miles having public ferries like this one. It also connects with about 100 smaller canals. The ferry service starts near the Chao Phraya River and goes east to end near the Golden Mount, some 18 miles distance. The rides cost between 10 and 20 baht, or 20 to 50 cents, and they avoid the traffic-clogged streets. I got off here to visit the Thompson House. During World War II, Jim Thompson served in Thailand with the forerunner of the CIA and stayed after the war. He built this compound by locating and reassembling these traditional buildings and filled them with artwork. He revived the traditional Thai silk industry by employing women who made silk textiles in their homes rather than relocating to a factory. He disappeared in 1967 in the Cameron Highlands of Malaysia. Despite efforts to locate him, even using psychics, he has never been found. Lots of conspiracy theories abound with his disappearance. Communist spies, business rivals, a hungry tiger, or targeted by the CIA because of his anti-American stance. This building site used to be one of my favorite food courts in the Sukhumvit area. Lots of progress in just 2 months. I again visited the Bumrungrad Hospital for dental treatment, this time a crown. Face masks are required everywhere. The COVID protocols include a TV temperature check, hand sanitizers, and escalator UV lights that sanitize the rubber railings. I always enjoyed traveling on the SkyTrain to the Chao Phraya River ferry boats to Wat Po. When I got to the Sathorn Pier landing, I saw they had replaced the traditional ferry boats with bigger catamarans at a cost of 50 baht versus just 15 baht for the old ferries. To get to Wat Po, I now had to get off at Wat Arun and take a shuttle ferry over to Ta Tin Landing. Restaurants along the waterfront. Here is what this restaurant looked like during the September 2011 flood. I enjoyed viewing the reclining Buddha in Wat Po, along with all of the stupas and Buddhas found there. I planned to visit Koh Samet Island by taking one of the many blue and white buses, but with COVID-19 they only offered one minibus daily at 8:30 a.m. I was too late for that, so I went to Pattaya instead since they offered frequent big buses there. The hotel I usually stayed at in the LK metro area was closed, as were several others, so I stayed at the Swasadi Siam Hotel with pool. Unfortunately, all the pools were closed because of COVID. There were varying COVID protocols. Some restaurants and bars required COVID antigen tests, which they offered free, or you could buy a test kit at 7-Eleven for about $1.50. The curfew for bars and restaurants was 9 p.m., just like Bangkok, and most go-go bars and dance places were closed. This triangle bar in the LK metro area had entertainment, and you were allowed in after a temperature check and hand sanitizing. People really enjoyed the music and each other. Since they were drinking, they did not have to wear a mask, which was required everywhere else. The Windmill Go-Go was open and had its touts dressed as nurses as an homage to your care during the COVID era. They required free testing for entry. There was no go-go inside, just bar girls sitting for customers. There were several bands vying for your attention along Walking Street. I think people enjoyed going to them because they could take off their face masks and mingle with others. I returned to Bangkok for my final crown fitting and then took this 8:30 a.m. minibus to Ban Phi and on to Koh Samet by ferry. I found out I had to get a COVID-19 test to go to Koh Samet. The ticket agent told me to take a moto taxi to the clinic. It was a quick process for just 200 baht for the test and 40 baht for the moto taxi. The Koh Samet Pier features an ogress who can transmute herself into a beautiful girl, as described in an epic poem by Sunthorn Fu. After paying a park entrance fee of 200 baht, I first came to the popular Hat Sai Kyu, which means Crystal Sand Beach in Thai. It's normally filled with jet skiers, parasailers, and beachgoers. Now it is practically empty, with just a few local Thais, Russian, and American tourists, since Europeans and Australians are still under quarantine. I took a songtao to the Ao Pudza Bay, where I've stayed for over 18 years in the Pudza Bungalows. When I rounded the bay, I was shocked to see the Pudza Bungalows were being torn down and replaced by modern bungalows called Blue Bay Bungalows. Okay, the Blue Bay Bungalows replaced the Ao Pudza Bungalows. They're part of the Samed Villa Resorts next door. The owners of Ao Pudza, they sold right after COVID hit. And they're building a restaurant here. Here is my bungalow that is complete with AC, TV, Thai language only, mini refrigerator, hot pot, microwave, and hot water. They charge me just 1,100 baht per night, or about $29. If you want food, the staff has to go over to the neighboring Villa Samed, so the food is just warm when it arrives, so I went to other island restaurants most of the time. The bar and reception areas are nicely done, and the loungers are comfortable, as are the lounge chairs. I always walk around to visit some of the other coves, and I usually get lunch along the way. Back at the Had Sai Kau Beach area, several restaurants had catered to Chinese tour groups who would fill up these restaurants. They are now empty because of COVID-19 restrictions, both in China and Thailand. The nightly fire shows still go on despite few onlookers. I now return to Bangkok to check on the Chinese New Year's celebrations there, which are the first since 2020. This year was a pretty quiet affair, so I reprised this amazing dragon dance performance in 2020, just as COVID-19 was beginning to shut down the world.
และสำหรับอีกสมัยพวกอินนั้นวันนี้มาในชื่อเรื่องว่ายาราชสีห์ขึ้นภูผาลุยวาลีตามหาดอกไม้มงคลนะครับนะสำหรับหน้าทีมงานเจ้าแม่พวกอินครับหมาดุเดือดครับตบมือดังๆครับโอ้โหนี่แหละครับ
In mid-February, the curfew in Bangkok and elsewhere has changed from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., and they're beginning to open up the go-go bars.
Well, I was just told to sit here because the train I was going to take at 7:30 got derailed, so we're going to take a bus to where the derail ends and take the train from there. Always something new and exciting. Plus, there's no food here other than donuts and croissants. All the food courts are closed.
The train riders from Bangkok to Suratani first had to take buses to the south end of Bangkok because of some rail problems. It was a comfortable night train ride in my bottom bunk with the bright pink privacy curtains. As we approached Suratani, we encountered a big rainstorm that fortunately stopped as we disembarked. I had breakfast while waiting for my minibus that would take us to the ferry terminal. Again, there were few passengers on my minibus, as well as the ferry to Koh Samui. We passed lots of semi-trucks waiting to board the ferry for the 2-hour trip to Koh Samui. Rode a moto taxi to Hat Lamai on Koh Samui to the Coconut Resort, but it had been torn down. The driver then drove me to the new Hat Bungalows. I ended up in the second row of these colorful bungalows, and once again we had a terrific rainstorm during the night. This singer was performing to an almost empty audience at this Hat Lamai stage.
Maybe there will be an answer, let it be. Plenty of room at the Hotel California. Any time of year, you can find it here.
approaching storm caused the new hut bungalow staff to remove the colorful flags as the storm began to pound against the walls of the restaurant. The restaurant staff continued to serve up delicious meals, though. Water and sand flowed across the restaurant floor and steps, and this little guy was helping out by removing the sand from the stairs. After a delicious breakfast of coffee, orange juice, and omelet, the owner drove me to the north end of Koh Samui to the Ibis Resort Hotel in Bo Phut. This was the nicest place I've stayed at, with a 60% discount of $34 per night. It has a large beachfront, 2 pools, a restaurant and bar overlooking the ocean. The pros of resorts like this blocked off easy access to the beachfront and had very few independent restaurants until I got to Fisherman's Village. On this side of Koh Samui, I enjoyed very calm waters, which were bathtub warm at 85 degrees. It was about a mile walk along the beach to Fisherman's Village, where I found many different restaurants as well as hotels. Those on the water side were almost twice as expensive as those without a water view. On my return to the Ibis Resort Hotel, it began to pour, so I stepped into this massage place so I could stay dry. I opted for an hour massage. When that was over, it was still raining, so I got a foot massage. A minibus picked me up along with Russian tourists for the speedboat ride to Koh Tao. The total cost of this minibus and 1-hour boat ride was 750 baht, or about $23. To travel to Koh Tao, we had to fill out an online application for COVID-19 tracking, which included your vaccinations, a COVID-19 antigen test within 72 hours of travel, and hotel information. My Thai dentist, Dr. Patchery, recommended seeing this island for diving and snorkeling, so that is how I decided to come here. I learned that during the COVID-19 lockdown, the Koh Tao community began an aggressive program to reseed the coral and create fish nests. They also began charging a small fee to tourists to cover these conservation efforts. I stopped for lunch at the harbor before heading up to my Blue Wave house. Koh Tao is considered one of the premier dive spots in the world, and I was shocked to see that over half the dive shops I passed on my way to the hotel were shuttered. Just after I arrived at the Blue Wave house, it began to rain heavily for a few hours and then cleared up. I took a 1.5 mile walk north to the Sari Beach area with its many restaurants, bars, and dive shops, where I enjoyed some great food while the sun set. The Lonely Planet guide indicated that this place is jumping from dusk to dawn, but that is not what I saw. Instead, most entertainment places like the Queen Cabaret were shuttered, as were over half the dive shops, restaurants, and bars. Through the hotel, I booked this round the island snorkel trip with Oxygen Tours.
Okay, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen, everyone.
It began with a 2-hour stop at the nearby Nang Yon Island, where we snorkeled and saw many types of fish and coral, including a lot of dead coral. Once on the island, we walked across this sand spit and hiked up to the top of the island for a great view of the sand spit and coral areas below. The living coral is in the darker water area.
We're just going to wait for everyone to take pictures because we need some time. Yeah, this looks less common.
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks less common.
Yeah.
I joined up with Didi from Austria and Natalie from Holland to snorkel in this area filled with dead coral lying on the floor of the ocean. We saw lots of parrotfish, schools of yellow, black, and white striped fish, iridescent bluefish, and some emerging staghorn coral. The coral was dying from people walking on it, and other causes are global warming of the oceans, pollution, and overfishing. Our next stop was at Lighthouse Bay, where we saw lots of different types of coral: staghorn, flower, brain, mountain, bush, and table. While also having lunch here, we had time to slide and jump off the boat. I took my camera with me down the slide. Natalie slides down backwards.
I don't know.
Didi was a bit hesitant, but eventually jumped.
Yeah, I would like a picture in the water, but I can't go underwater.
We stopped at the nearby Mango Bay and were joined by a scuba dive training boat. Here we saw other varieties of coral, including ribbon, anemone, brain, table, mountain, and bush. Continuing around the island, we stopped at Hin Long Bay for more snorkeling. This time we saw more coral as before, along with colorful clams embedded in coral, a school of angelfish and yellowfish. Here is one of my colorful tattoo companions. Her tattoos attracted the fish as well as fellow tourists.
Okay, this is Outlook Bay. No snorkeling today, it's too wavy and windy.
A few people saw the sharks, and all of us saw these two turtles just ambling along the bottom of the ocean. One turtle has a lamprey hanging onto its shell. If anyone wants to learn to scuba dive, this would be the place for the variety of coral, sea life, warmth of the water, close proximity to the shore, and abundance of dive shops. I booked this all-day trip to Krabi, which involved a catamaran, a speedboat, and finally a minibus. This sure beats figuring out how to cobble together this journey myself. The cost was just 1,300 baht, or $34. The first leg of the trip was by a large catamaran to Koh Phanang, popular for its all-night full moon parties. On the way, we spotted this hydrofoil surfer. Our second leg was to transfer to a 20-passenger speedboat that took us to a Suratani pier. At Suratani, passengers split up to different destinations. My third leg was to Krabi and my Palace Aonang resort. Each of the 3 legs took an hour plus some wait times. I arrived during another downpour. The highlight to my Krabi trip was the PP Island tour with Nang On Tours, which was recommended by the hotel staff. A minibus drove us to the boat landing where we boarded our speedboat. All but 2 of us were Thais. Our first stop was at the Viking Caves, where locals harvest swallows' nests for a soup delicacy. It's even sold on Amazon and by Walmart now. It was then on to Monkey Bay, where the boats outnumbered the monkeys. I circled in red the 2 I saw. We stopped on PP Island for lunch in a big dining hall filled with mostly Thai tourists. Afterwards, I walked around the north and south side of the narrow isthmus before returning to our boat. Of 15 tourists here, all but 2 of us were Thais. A few Thais were Muslim, and those women snorkeled wearing full pants, long-sleeve shirts, and hijabs. We enjoyed the clear water snorkeling in Losama Bay, where we saw mountain coral, embedded clams, and schools of fish. We toured the Maya Beach, made famous by the movie The Beach, starring Leo DiCaprio. After several years of closure due to overexposure, this beach was open for tourists, but there was no longer swimming allowed, nor were any boats allowed into the bay. Instead, our boat dropped us off on a dock on the other side of the island, along with hundreds of other tourists and boats. After walking on this planked path across the island, we had an hour to enjoy the now pristine beach.
This is where the beach was filmed.
Upon returning to the boat dock, it looked like a real scrum. All the captains seemed to know how to move to avoid crashes, almost like a ballet of boats. Our last snorkeling stop was at this white sand beach on Bamboo Island, where boats were moored as far as the eye could see. The waves were quite a bit more than our previous stops, and the coral was beautiful, as were the fish. Bush, anemone, staghorn, table, and mountain corals were abundant, as were the embedded blue-lined clams and sea urchins. I got nipped by some of the fish, so I ended my snorkeling for the day. On our return, we spotted the distinctive Chicken Island. While in Aonang Krabi, I enjoyed visiting these two music venues.
Before I find somebody else to be my lover.
While in Aonang, I enjoyed the views, the food, along with the chillaxing surroundings. It rained all morning as I awaited my afternoon minibus to the Krabi Harbor for my speedboat ride over to Phuket, about an hour away. The cost from hotel to hotel with boat and bus rides was just 1,300 baht, or 34 US dollars. I had posted these F-COVID murals on my blog that captured the sentiment of the people, and the Thai government blocked my blog, so I was unable to post anything more until I returned to the US. I stayed at the Amity guest house that was just a block from the Bangla Road walking street and the center of entertainment. After I sat down for dinner, the downpour started and the street emptied. It was a good time for me to buy an umbrella and get back to my hotel. The following evening, it cleared up enough to check things out along Bangla Road. There weren't very many tourists like last time I was here. Many of the bars and dancers along the street were not here. I found the Kangaroo Bar that began to fill up with bar girls and patrons. The kangaroo was my high school mascot in Kirkland, Washington. To enter Bangla Road, you had to have a temperature check and apply hand sanitizer. As evening came, so did the music performers at the various bars. One of the big draws for these places is that people did not have to wear face masks while drinking or eating. I took a plane back to Bangkok instead of a 15-hour bus ride. Once there, I caught the minibus to Koh Samet, where I would relax before returning to the United States. This is the main street on Koh Samet before entering the park, and where I caught the Songtao back to the Blue Bay Bungalows. These night and early morning rainstorms seem to follow me everywhere in Thailand this time of year. Shortly after the rains, the mosquito fumigator came out to fog the area. I had not seen this before. The storm also washed up a lot of flotsam and jetsam. At first, people picked through to get the numerous fishing lures, string, and rope. And then later, the Blue Bay Bungalow staff removed the remainder of it. I have enjoyed the Blue Bay Bungalow improvements. Here are nearby restaurants and bars. I took this catamaran back to Ban Phi and on to Bangkok for my return flight to Seattle. To fly back to the U.S., travelers were required to take a monitored COVID antigen test within 24 hours of departure. I used the BioNex Now proctored COVID test via the internet video I'd brought from home. I caught the rail link to the Bangkok airport for my Asiana Air flight home via Incheon. The cabin flight crew was wearing the Ghostbuster outfits for the sparsely filled plane to Incheon. I saw lots of warehoused airplanes and the terminal was fairly empty. I had a stew for lunch since they were out of bulgogi, their national specialty. Along with this robot luggage carrier, I found this wonderful lounge area during my long layover. On the flight to Seattle, the plane was practically empty, so passengers, including me, were able to stretch out to sleep across 4 seats. I woke up in time to see Mount Baker outside my window as we came into Seattle. On the ground, it was a typical gray day as I caught the light rail along with a sleeping homeless guy. This mural really captures people's feelings about our experiences with COVID-19 and its challenges when traveling. Check out my travel blog and my YouTube channel shown above. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel to learn more about my past and future travels. Thank you.